Anyone here with us tonight? We're standing outside St Mary's Hospital. Rosary beads.
Rotary beads. Oh my God.
Yeah.
We've just had a really interesting experience in the room. Hi guys, this is Georgia and Gabby, and today we're going to speak to you about the history of the Tasman Hotel and the surrounds and why we're investigating this as a potentially haunted location. Mum is actually from Hobart.
I am indeed. I wasn't born here, but I grew up here and left when I was about 28.
Yeah, so she's got some history with how haunted the place is.
Yeah.
It's a really spooky city, guys, like super spooky.
Very spooky.
One of the first penal colonies in Australia, so lots of unhappy visitors.
Yeah, I mean, everything here is still original. Everything is still heritage listed. So, there are very strict rules around it. So the original land, the original buildings are still here. Much is as it was. And, it's still living on tainted land, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it definitely feels different here.
It does feel different. And, I grew up here and didn't really realise this is actually not the way most places are until I moved to the mainland and realised it felt different. The land felt different. But it did affect me. It did impact me growing up with all the experiences I had, to the point where when I moved to the mainland, I made a decision that I would never live in an old house and I would never stay in an old hotel because I had essentially grown up. My whole life had just been spent dealing with this stuff, and it does get quite scary and time-consuming and overwhelming at times. And so coming back after living in the mainland for 40 years is quite an experience.
Yeah, we like to come down at least once every 2 years, every year, just to get a real proper winter. We don't where we're from, so to actually be able to wear a coat is lovely. And I do remember when we booked the Tasman, the hotel we're speaking about today, there was a lot of hotels on our radar, and I suggested a couple of others, and Mum said, no, they're too old, too haunted. And we ended up at the Tasman, which was a new hotel. What we didn't know was that the Tasman is it's an amalgamation of old buildings that were used for different purposes.
Yeah.
And they've kind of been remodeled into this 5-star hotel.
Yeah, it's the Marriott actually bought up about 5 buildings, one which used to be the lands department. There's 5 buildings in all that they bought, and the original St Mary's Hospital is one of them, which is where the Mary Bar is housed.
An old hospital is never a good thing.
And all the original facade and a lot of what's underneath is still there because of heritage listing. It's very heavily
protected.
Protected. So
I think the first clue we had that perhaps we were in for a bad time, and don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful hotel.
It is.
It's really stunning. We really enjoyed our stay. Besides not getting any sleep.
We bit off more than we can chew.
Yeah, and we just didn't realize. But I think our first inkling was that we arrive, they upgrade us to a heritage suite. We don't know what that means. Heritage could mean a whole host of things.
Could mean old furniture.
Yeah, and then as we're walking through the corridor in the heritage wing, which is one of these older buildings, there are these doors to a part you can't really enter. It's for employees only.
As soon as I walk past these doors, I, having worked in a hospital and been in a morgue, knew straight away that's where a morgue was.
No,
not even knowing the history.
I don't know if it was the morgue, but it definitely was medical, because the doors that you in a hospital that you push a gurney through?
Yeah.
Yeah, super spooky to walk past those in a hotel.
We're quite shocked.
And nobody, like, everyone was acting like it was super normal. And and we're
But-
like, oh, okay, what's in there? And there's a stairway. And we said, where
Yeah.
does that go? And they said,
We're not
we're not
allowed
allowed
up
to tell
there.
you. We're not
No
allowed to tell you.
staff are allowed up there.
So we get to the room, and guys, it's so beautiful, but it's all original, like, brick facade.
Yeah.
And we didn't really speak too much at length about how we felt, mostly because we were just really excited to be on vacation and a lot of money had been spent and we were ready for cocktails. Like, I really think that that's really all we were focused on.
Yeah.
And I don't know what for me, the first couple of days before anything really, really happened, I just had this feeling that I was being watched. The room felt really open. I didn't even have a shower, guys, because I
Yeah.
felt it was an all glass shower and I just felt like I was being watched so much. I just didn't feel comfortable.
For me, it was walking down the corridor. There was
It
like
was quite cold. There was a
the
cold
corridor
wind.
towards the room.
Oh,
Every time just
and it's
made
really
me
dark.
made me feel
Ill.
really sick. And on a number of occasions, the original sort of, like, it looks like a hospital setup. All of the cupboards opened up as I walked past, which just and so even me began to get quite scared because it was quite strong energy, and it was quite restless and anger. That's really what I picked up, anger. But again, I didn't mention this to Georgia.
She didn't want to freak me out. I didn't want to freak her out. And we're so used to this because, we have such a family history of experiencing things like this, and kind of against our will, stuff like this happens to us. And everywhere we go, there's always some nonsense. It's complete nonsense. We are never seeking this out, I would like to tell you guys, unless we're doing one of these videos where we're trying to see, is there something that can be done? What's the history of the place? Can we debunk this? Has something maybe not been done correctly and now people on the other side are upset?
Yeah.
That's really always our focus. But yeah, we're definitely not walking around hoping that stuff happens to us.
Yeah.
But we are, this happens to us fairly often. So both of us were just like, let's just try and ignore it. Let's pretend it's not happening and maybe it will go away. Spoiler alert, it didn't. To move because the security has come and had a chat to us because he was interested in what we're doing. And so we've had a chat about that. So now nobody thinks that we're doing anything illegal. We're by the fire, but we're freezing. So we're going to tell you what happened that night. So you're asleep.
Yep, I'm asleep. The lights are out. Georgia's on her phone.
Just scrolling, doom scrolling. Yeah.
And it was quite late. We'd been out, and at exactly midnight, the bedside
alarm clock
went off. Even though we hadn't actually set it. We'd been there, it was the second or third night, I think.
Midnight as well. Exactly on midnight.
Yeah, exactly on midnight. The lights were out. We immediately, you sat up, and I'm
and I said,
frantically trying to turn it off.
And we're trying to figure out, why it's going off.
Yeah, and then Georgia turned the lights on.
And then I feel someone touch my arm. And I thought maybe it was my hair. And I go, oh. And then keep in mind the air conditioning isn't working. And then, we look up and the chandelier, big chandelier, swinging back and forth violently. Yeah, it was horrifying. There's this silent moment where we both went.
I'll never forget how the pit of my stomach dropped because I immediately knew what was going on.
So outside of this, we do PI work. Yeah, we do PI work outside of this. So we're very used to investigating and then having to understand evidence. So at that point, I'm like, do I try and debunk this in my brain? The air conditioning isn't working, so it's not that. I'm like looking for a reason. I'm like, is it an earthquake? No. No, at that point I go, Mom.
And immediately, as soon as that alarm, I will say, as soon as that alarm went off, I knew instantly in that second that something was happening, because we'd already been in that room for 2 nights prior,
Yeah.
had no issues. The alarm hadn't been touched by us. And we found out guest services said later they hadn't touched it either. They couldn't explain it. There was really no explanation for it happening other than it being a paranormal occurrence. We pretty
couldn't
much
debunk
debunked
it.
everything. But the hairs on the back of my neck immediately were
Yeah,
up,
we immediately
and
were
I
like, let's
felt-
turn the lights on. We're not doing this anymore.
I just felt quite unwell, and
Yep.
really, we're in this room with really high ceiling, and
Super high
really
ceilings.
super high ceilings, super high windows facing St David's Park, which
Will be
is-
part 2 of this video.
But that was the original burial ground for the penal colony, where that was a cemetery.
We didn't know that at the
No.
time also. We didn't know anything. We really went into this stupid and blind. Yeah, we really had no idea. And this is what happens.
Yeah, and so we
We call like the front desk and say, hey, so a heap of weird stuff is happening. Can we change rooms?
And look, to be fair, there had been issues with the room,
The
mechanical
electricals,
issues.
it had been raining the week before, and it
Yeah.
doesn't rain a lot here, and they'd had issues, and
Yeah.
so yeah. To be fair, a fair amount of stuff could be debunked by just natural occurrences.
Yeah.
But we didn't feel safe at that point.
Yeah. So they said, yep, sure, no problem. We will try and find you a room and we'll call back. In
Yeah.
the meantime, we are in the room. Georgia starts to experience...
I start getting a migraine. A really right in the center of my head. And that's not usually where I get headaches anyway. So that was a little strange. And then I started feeling like I had the flu, really sick. And I just had this feeling of, do you know when you're sick and you don't feel in control of yourself? That's how I felt. This is the first time this has happened to me as well in a paranormal experience.
Yeah, I just knew that there were a lot of people in that room with us.
Yeah, it felt crowded all of a sudden.
I could feel lots of people around me, but I didn't get the sense that they were adults. I got the sense...
Yeah, it definitely felt childlike because the way I was being touched, it felt that way.
And it didn't feel like I'm 5'2", and it didn't feel like they were tall people. It really felt childlike. There was a childlike energy and presence in the room. And I said to Georgia, we need to talk to them and try and find out what's going on, acknowledge what's going on, and see if we can get some information.
So what commenced after that was just us chatting to the room, explaining that they had passed. We obviously didn't have any feedback for this, but we thought, we'll just speak to the ether, to the abyss, explaining, look, this is what's happened. There has been a lot of construction here, but everything's fine. You're safe. If you want to cross over, if you haven't crossed over, your parents probably want to see you. There's people on the other side that love you.
But what really came through to me is that I didn't know the history at this point. Even though I grew up here, I didn't really know the history of this part of the land, and which you don't when you're young. You don't sort of focus on that kind of thing. But what came through to me is that these were children who had been either children of patients at the hospital, or they were children that actually had been experimented on by
My first thought
Dr.
with the
Bedford.
headache was that there had been somebody doing
a lobotomy.
lobotomies or something of the kind.
Yeah.
We didn't have any proof of this, but something just didn't feel right
No.
about that. And the second that we moved rooms, I didn't have a headache, I didn't
No.
feel sick anymore. So that definitely felt psychic.
My overwhelming feeling from it was that they didn't know what was going
Confused
on.
and
Their peace in the building had disappeared
Mm.
because of the construction. They were scared. They were little. They just wanted somebody to acknowledge that they were there. They wanted someone to talk to, and they just wanted to be seen. They wanted someone to tell their story, and that was the overwhelming feeling that I had. We moved to a new room. We didn't experience any of that, although I could still feel them tugging.
Yeah, there's still a bit of a presence, you know.
As we walked around the complex, I could still feel them tugging. And that's how that trip ended,
left
with a
and-
promise that we would come back
Yeah.
and tell their story.
We left and went, you know, I hope it feels better, but this time round we wanted to see if it does and if things have improved.
Yeah.
But also, can we get perhaps evidence beyond just circumstantial, beyond just our feelings, to maybe back that up and see if there is still more activity? And other surrounding areas, including St. David's Park, do they have activity? Is it linked to the hotel? That's what we're going to find out.
Did the hospital take the bodies across the road and bury them in St. David's Park?
Seems plausible.
That, seems plausible that you would have a cemetery across the road from a hospital. The hospital itself was a new undertaking by Dr. Bedford.
For convicts as well. It was not. It was not like a hospital for well-to-do people that had chosen to come to Australia. It was. It was for people who'd been shipped here and their kids.
Yeah.
Which obviously is not a friendly environment, and definitely one where people could have been taken advantage of or treated really badly, which often did happen. I mean, it's 1800s.
The hospital itself, he wanted to transition it to a teaching hospital, but it was not approved by the Board of Surgeons, and so funding was cut.
And he promptly left to New South Wales. Yes. So I do believe there's probably more research we can do around that in the future. But for now, this video is going to be all about figuring some stuff out, seeing what we can find and seeing what we can do to maybe better how it feels.
Yep. So join us on the journey.
And join us. We've just had a really interesting experience in the room. We are in the wing that isn't Heritage Suites. It's 1920s Art Deco. We got moved here last time, as we told you previously. So we were like, yep, this should be fine. We were aware that there would be some kind of activity just because the land itself has so much history. I'm just sitting here, just chilling. We've eaten some chips and I just really need to decompress. So I'm just laying there. Mum's like doing some stuff and the blinds start closing. And usually, I don't know if all of our viewers have this in hotels near them, but there's these control panels where you can tap it to close it. And I thought, oh, that's what's happened. No. So the blinds start closing and it puts on nighttime setting. And I'm like, Mum, did you do that? I said, I wonder if it's automated, you know, benefit of the doubt. I thought maybe it was automated. No, because then it decides to just shut the lights off in the room. And it sounded like the power went out. So we called guest services and everything kind of seemed to come back on once Mum started tapping a heap of buttons. And they said, oh, we'll talk to our data manager and get back to you. We haven't heard back from them yet, which isn't surprising. So we've got the EMF reader out. And as you can see, nothing crazy.
Yeah, nothing.
a little bit more activity than we typically. Oh, what was that? That just shot up for a second then. We weren't planning on filming until tomorrow. We haven't had a lot of sleep and we've been up since 4 a.m. and the whole process was long and convoluted. And we were going to just go to dinner and then start our investigation tomorrow. And we weren't even planning on doing any direct investigation in the room, just out of respect. But it seems that someone has decided to try and get our attention, I think is really what's happened. So when when we feel game to run some programs and see if we can speak to someone, see what they want, we will. But for now, we're gonna wait to hear what the data manager has to say about that. We do have some fluctuations. I'm just going to give the room a quick reading and see if we have any hotspots of activity, if we can debunk that and see, is there maybe a reason? We are aware that the electricals in the building, which is made up of buildings, aren't fantastic. Based on our previous experiences here, it does seem that the wiring is a problem because they have wired so many buildings together and they are old buildings. So I don't want to say that this is paranormal activity without a fair amount of backup evidence, complementary evidence, but it has, it's definitely set a tone. So for sure. So let's have a walk around and let's have a look what we can see. So the hotel is a mess here because we just got in and we're trying to decide what clothing we were going to wear tonight.
So I've got the SLS out.
We still haven't heard back. It's been about, 10, 15 minutes? I don't know if they know what's happened, so keep you posted. So we've just had a maintenance guy in here, the data manager, and he's tested the control panels. There's 2 in the room, 1 on each side of the bed. And Mum's side seems like he said there was a loose connection. I don't know that explains that it did it by itself, that it turned everything off by itself without any kind of contact or anything, especially considering it's a touch screen, but I don't know anything about that. So I cannot confirm or deny. What I can confirm is that it was really scary. It was really scary because the lights just turned out and I couldn't see anything. And I'm super blind, so that was scary. He is now going to find an electrician to see if they can fix it. I hope this is the last we have of electrical issues that take over the room.
So this is building 2. I'm going to take you around the corner and show you the buildings in order. Building 2 is called Salamanca Place, and this was actually constructed in 1884 after the hospital was built. This would have formed part of the hospital itself, and as you can see, it's all in its original form.
Oh wow, look, you can even see the scratching, the etching on the stone.
The rooms in the Tasman, in the Heritage Suite, are actually in buildings 2 and 1. So the very first time that we stayed here, we're in a Heritage Suite facing St David's Park, probably in this room up here. And Yeah, there's a lot of activity in those rooms. So let me just take you as we move up through. You can see how large this building is, and there's a lot of rooms that were actually constructed as part of the Tasman build. 2 floors, in fact. So let's just go around the corner. And this brings us to building 1. This is the original St Mary's Hospital. All the original facade. Tasmania has a really strict heritage history, and there are a lot of rules and regulations around what development can be done in heritage listed buildings such as these. This is the original doorway to St Mary's Hospital. This building was constructed in 1847 with a view to creating a hospital for poor people or a private hospital for people who didn't have money. Dr. Bedford, who started it, originally wanted to use it as a teaching hospital, but was unable to get funding. There are a lot of questions around whether some untoward activities went on here. That, of course, cannot be proven, but there is a lot of
Conjecture.
Yeah, there's a lot of conjecture about it. So, and there's a lot of areas that staff are unable to access in the Tasman itself.
Yeah, we know this from questioning them and them saying no. Yeah, we can't tell you.
Yeah. So this is what's considered to be Building 3. This was constructed in 1885. And as you can see, it's absolutely spectacular. I believe this also is the heritage wing, as well as some of the areas that the staff are unable to access. Now, so now we're at Building 5, which was built in 1937 and was the state government offices. The 5th floor was demolished in 1960 for some reason. I'm not sure why. I'm still trying to work that out. But as you can see, it has been created in absolutely stunning Art Deco style. And that's where the Art Deco lounge name comes from.
That's their little cafe kind of casual dining room in the hotel.
Yeah. So they have the Art Deco lounge, and they have the Mary Mary bar, and the Mary Mary bar is a homage to St Mary's Hospital. The Art Deco lounge is a homage to this building. So they're honouring the history of the buildings themselves. This area here was actually constructed by the Tasman under very strict conditions. Behind that area there is actually Parliament House, which is also heritage listed as well. Has its own history, has a lot of stories attached to it as well, with a park in front of it that has some activity, I believe. The thing with Hobart is that all of the buildings pretty much are original. All of them have a story attached to them. The whole island was a penal colony, convicts and cemeteries and hospitals. So there's just no end of things that we can investigate here. God, look at that. Captain John Lawton, but unfortunately drowned off Maria Island. Oh, that's 75 years. Oh no, he was...
Now, you were mentioning previously that there was a survey done.
A couple of years ago, a survey was done of St David's Park, an anthropologic survey. It was believed at the time that all the bodies had actually been moved from that park, but a survey undertaken showed that actually there were still many, many bodies buried in that park. However, no one knows who they are because the headstones are
Have
long gone.
degraded, yeah.
But yeah, they're there. There's an anthropologist that I follow on YouTube who's talking about this.
So I think it's fair to say that there's probably issues ethically with developing a whole block of buildings where people have died, where convicts have settled and probably suffered, and then not addressing what's happened, both from like a spiritual standpoint to whatever might still be there, but also from a human standpoint to the people who
Yeah.
are staying there. It seems strange
It's
to not tell people.
It's obvious to me, having now stayed there twice, the common denominator has been electrical faults.
Yes.
And in my mind, 4 years apart, and they're still having electrical faults, weird goings on in the room. And we're in a
Either they're
complete,
broke and they can't fix their electricals, which I doubt, or
yeah,
there is maybe something spooky
yeah,
involved in that. I also think they do have items on display that were found. This is the Tasman. They have items on display that were found when they did these renovations, but they're kind of just in a corridor.
they're in the Mary Mary bar at
Yeah.
a room.
But it's
One
not.
of the rooms at the Mary
It's
Mary
not really
bar.
somewhere that you would find easily, and they're not displayed in
No.
any way that is kind of explains a narrative or anything, or
Look, it's
indicates
just,
respect,
it's like finding a bone of somebody, taking it home and displaying it on your mantelpiece.
or like wearing it like a necklace or something. It's just a
Yeah.
bit strange, and especially for a place like Hobart where the penal colony history is so important to the local culture. You have to remember that most of the people who were brought over here as convicts were Irish, Scottish, from the
Yeah,
UK. As I say, as we pass an Irish bar, an Irish
12,000
pub.
12,000 women were brought over as convicts, and with 2,000 children. So 12,000 came over, but many of them were pregnant. So between them, they had 2,000 children. They came over as convicts, but they were essentially supposed to be given their freedom as part of their coming to Van Diemen's Land. You have to question, though, is that version of history actually correct?
Especially when you consider the ratio of men and women that were brought
Yes.
over as convicts. Women perhaps did not have much of a choice with how many
Yeah.
children they had or what was required of them by this society.
Yeah.
So you can see there's a lot of suffering here and a lot of inequality.
Yeah, and the other thing too is the St Mary's Hospital, whilst it was set up to service the poor, predominantly they were women.
Yeah.
Women and children, and that certainly came through to us the first time we stayed.
Yeah.
They were children coming to us and their mothers. So there's a lot there that's been swept under the
That
carpet.
we think maybe could be respected a little bit more and perhaps communicated as part of the story of the hotel. Okay, we're outside the Tasman Hotel. What building is Mary Mary?
This was the original St Mary's Hospital, building 2.
Yeah.
This is building 2 here, and building 1 was the original site of the St Mary's Hospital. That was building 1, and then they built this so that it faced Salamanca Place.
We will do a kind of covert operation tomorrow evening when Mary Mary is open
we'll go
again.
into the actual bar itself.
We'll go in and run our apps on silent mode, see if anyone says anything, and see if I can pick up some readings. But But for now, we thought we would come outside, see if there's any residual energy just on the block. We are right across from the park. Just see what we can pick up and if there's anything lingering.
Is there anyone here with us tonight? We're standing outside St Mary's Hospital. Rosary beads.
Rosary beads, oh my God.
Yes,
St.
I
Mary's
actually had
Hospital.
some rosary beads when I was going to school.
I've got
Do
chills,
you want
let
to tell
me
me
see.
a little bit more about what the rosary beads meant for you?
Were you Catholic? Mum here went to a Catholic school.
I went
raised
to a
by
Catholic
nuns.
school and I had rosary beads. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about the rosary beads and what that meant for you? Okay, do you want to tell us a little bit more about how you came to be here, how you're feeling?
Oh, it's making a lot of noises. What does that mean?
I'm not sure.
Alarm, alarm. The magnetometer?
Not feeling well.
Not
okay.
feeling well. Okay, all
So,
chills. It's a
you
hospital.
were
Oh my God.
at the hospital. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what happened to you at the hospital that made you not feeling well? You may remember us. We were here 4 years ago and we told you that we would come back and tell your story, and we're back here tonight to listen to what you have to say. That was our promise to you.
Oh my God, I have chills. Not feeling well. Rosary beads.
Yeah. You want to tell me your name? My name is Gaby.
I am Georgia. Everyone calls me Gigi.
And we're here to find out a little bit more about what happened to you at St Mary's Hospital. Let's have a look up here. These are all the rooms that are now in what used to be a hospital wing.
What was
rock.
that?
Yep, that's exactly right.
What did
it's
it say?
rock.
Rock?
Rock, yes,
That
it's
is
made of
rock.
rock.
There's a lot of rock. These were the original rocks too.
Yeah, this is the original.
That they were carved out by convicts. You can
So
see
these rocks were actually created by convicts.
Were you a convict?
Let me show you some more of the rock. Perhaps tell me a little bit more about why you're not feeling well. It's okay, you can tell me.
We're not here to hurt you.
No, we're just here to tell your story. Patient, you're a patient. Is that what you mean? You were a patient at the hospital when you weren't feeling well? How long were you a patient?
Yeah, it's definitely picking up magnetometer readings against
Yeah,
that
it
original
is.
wall.
Yeah, it is. It's quite, if you put it over here,
Yeah,
it's
it gives you
picking
a
up
warning.
every time I go near. Yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about your experience at the hospital. Nightmare. It was a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, understandable.
Understandable. We've
Lots
heard
of
a lot
bad
of
things happened
stories.
here.
We've done a lot of reading about this hospital in the years that it was open. Of course, it's gone now. What we're looking at is just a shell of a building. But, of course, I know that many of you are still trapped here in spirit. And that's why we're here to talk to you about how that's made you feel, how you're feeling now, why you can't move on. But mostly to listen to your story. Do you have a name? My name's Gabby, and this is Gigi. Did you meet anybody that went over into St. David's Park?
We know that that was the original cemetery
Yep.
for the hospital.
Let's go back down here where we're getting a lot of those magnetometer readings. Every time we go near the building,
Yeah, more
that's
magnetometer
crazy.
readings. You are near a metal fence though, so that could
That's
be
true.
why.
That is absolutely true. Let's see if it happens if I put this over. No. So debunked.
Debunked.
In the past, yep.
In the past, yeah. In the past, this was a hospital.
Yes, it was a hospital. Of course, it's not anymore. However, it's now used as a hotel, but we're here to acknowledge the past. Do you want to tell us what your name is? How long you were here? What? What is your name?
Well, we are kind of loitering outside a little bit, and we don't want to kind of overstay our welcome.
Yep. So we
I
might
think-
continue this tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think we might continue tomorrow night. Perhaps see if we can learn a little bit more about what kind of illnesses would have been treated. I do think from memory, maybe Spanish influenza falls within that time period. So we're going to have a look at that. So it is now the night afterwards, and I am sporting a very nasty burn to my forehead. We're not going to acknowledge that. But this is the Tasman Hotel, and I'm showing you the outside walls that lead to Mary Mary Bar so that you can get an idea of just how spooky some of the original kind of infrastructure is. I'll turn the camera around, but this, we're not really sure what this was used for, but it's always just been housing one singular cask. So not sure what's going on there, but the red light does make it a little bit extra spooky. So as you move along the corridor, which is behind me here, you get a real feeling of unease. I definitely did the first time I was here. I do think that it has calmed down a little bit, but you can see it's very, very colonial era. So let me turn the camera around for you. As you can see, this is all original, apart from the sconces. And as you go through here, the door to the restaurant is right in front, and then to the right is the door to Mary Mary, the bar. So this is all originally part of the hospital. You can see that leads out into the street, which then leads down into the water. This is the first room of Mary Mary, which does hold some of the old artifacts that were located, that we mentioned previously, that were located when they did the renovation, so I'll get some footage of that. So you can see here, this is the original fireplace. As far as I'm aware, this is all the original wood as well that's been repurposed and used around the place. I'll show you what these artifacts look like. So I'm not sure if you can see that, but there is an original tobacco pipe. There's a couple of them here. We've got glass ink bottles, a child's shoe, aerated water marble, an ink bottle, and numerous other things that were found during the renovations, including ceramics. Up here, there are original Cascade bottles found from periods along the way, probably the 1920s era buildings. And here we have votes and proceedings from the House of Assembly of 1883. And some more pottery here. So Parliament Square archaeology objects loaned from the Tasmania Museum and Art Gallery. So we can see there is some kind of acknowledgement of archaeological evidence, but it's kind of like shoved into the back room here. And they're just shards of like people's lives that are back here. I do think it's great that the archaeology department of the museum is involved to a certain degree with the construction here, but it's kind of sad to see them back here. But those are the items, some of the items that we've been mentioning. We'll show you some more that are in the Tasman Hotel themselves. Okay, this is the second dining room. Very similar to the last one that you can see through there. This is all the original fireplaces, or stone from fireplaces, original brick, and the original sandstone. All these police out and about because there was a football game maybe a coming.
Yeah. Well, Mum met someone and had an affair with somebody on one of the American big boats. It was one of the really big ones. Came to Hobart and she met a guy on it, and she had an affair with him for years. She was seeing him years. She wasn't with George. This was before George.
They just got don't come back.
Don't come in. Let's see what happens if I run it. Which one is that?
This is just regular ghost tube. I just gossiping on a bar. Seeing what we hear.
Because he hadn't really been up.
You don't want me to come into the back room? Oh no. Hi guys, we've just left Mary Bar for tonight. This is the last night of our trip to Hobart and last night of our investigation. And we wanted to show you a little bit of what the front facade of the building looks like so you can see the entrance. So the objective of tonight is to get a little bit more evidence of the paranormal activity in regards to ghostly apparitions, figures, speaking, and just generally trying to explain some of the kind of off feeling in the hotel. We are going to head up as discreetly as possible, of course, to the Heritage Wing and see what we can find. And that's the plan. Hi guys, we're back in the same location we were at last night on the outside of the Tasman Hotel, backing onto St. David's Park. That's right here in front of me. We're just going to see if we can get some more readings through GhostTube, see if we can speak to anyone that's here. We did have some really interesting stuff come through that seemed quite relevant. I'd also like to note we've done some prior research on the hotel and what they're doing to kind of talk about the history. Now, there are ghost tours, not ghost tours, history tours that are offered, but the only place that they're really spoken about is in the lifts. So we'll speak more about that in our conclusion on the investigation. But for now, we're just going to see if we can get in contact with the same person we were speaking to previously. So let's have a look. All right, I'm recording. It is a little bit busy out on the street tonight. It is earlier. It's about 9 p.m. Let's see what we can see. Bit awkward. Is there anybody here who was staying at St. Mary's Hospital, either when it was first established as part of the first penal colony or when it was used as... Are you trying? I am trying. I'm really trying to speak to you.
We're both trying, buddy. We're here to listen to your story. What's your name? What can you tell us about what happened to you?
Is there anything you want to tell people? Is there anything you'd like to say? We're here and we're listening, and this is a device you can use to select words to speak to us.
Were you a patient at the hospital?
Perhaps one that was buried across the road in St. David's Park. We know many people were buried there, and that many people maybe are still remaining in the park.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Let's go to a different location down here,
Yeah.
perhaps.
We're just going to try a different location. So we're back up in the Heritage Wing. We're up in the heritage wing, and I wanted to show you the other artifacts that are kept here for display. So these include marbles and tobacco pipe bowls primarily. And here's the second cabinet. We can see here that this primarily includes ceramics, ink bottles, and various ceramic objects. There is up here a little information about the history of the place, which I can show you. This includes a map of all new and existing buildings, and then information about St. Mary's Hospital, the Salamanca Extension, the Government Printer's Office, and some information about those buildings. This is what the wing looks like. I am going to be very overt. We are in Heritage Wing. Right, that's it. There are some people staying here. So we want to be as discreet as possible. So I'm going to record what I can. We do really love the hotel, and we've stayed here multiple times. And this is like no hate on the Tasman, no hate on the Marriott. It's just,
It's clear that there's a lot of unsettled bodies.
I mean, I guess the idea my perspective here is that it's totally fine to not make that a part of your hotel. The history doesn't, you're not obligated to.
Yeah.
But if you're having issues with paranormal happenings and you want them to stop, you probably need to look at that as your first point of call. And maybe they don't want it to stop. Maybe they don't want to know about it. But
but brushing it under the carpet essentially
won't fix it.
It will not fix the problem, and it's only adding to the problem of what led to all that upheaval for all of these buildings in the first place. Whilst they do have plaques all around the hotel talking about various parts of the hotel, and there are pieces on display, etc., it's still very unsettled. And we've spoken to people around who have worked there or patrol areas around it who have said that they certainly experience things
people
off
in
camera.
nearby stores, people.
When we first stayed and we actually did ask to be moved because it was so bad, we very much got the impression that they weren't at all surprised.
They were like, okay, yep.
3 of them came up, moved us to another room in another part of the hotel.
They did mention that it had happened previously, and this was a new hotel then too.
Yeah. So
I mean, what would be your recommendation for activities that the Tasman could undertake in order to improve the situation, even if the investigation doesn't turn up anything of great importance? What would be your recommendation from the perspective of somebody who has experience in communications work?
Yeah.
What would be your recommendation?
Look, what they told me is that they want their story known. They want to be seen. They want to, they when I first met them, it was when the hotel had just opened, and they were unsettled. They had no idea what was going on. And I promised them that I would come back and I would tell their story. And that essentially has led to this channel. That although I grew up in Hobart and experienced this my whole life, for me it was just part of life. I actually didn't think it was anything different. But I made a promise to them 4 years ago that I would come back and tell their story, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I probably have a little bit of a different opinion because I am definitely the skeptic out of the two of us. Even though I have had these experiences, my dad was a scientist, so and my history is in archaeology and ancient history. A field where you have to quantify everything and really understand the quality of your sources. So for me, while strange things happen, until I can't explain them with science or can't explain them any other way, then I don't always jump to it being paranormal. Whereas mum is always like, it's aliens. It's
not always aliens.
It's aliens, but it's usually aliens.
But, I grew up in Hobart and saw a lot of weird shit. And for me, it's just part and parcel of life for me.
For me, there's a balance between life and death. There's a balance between those things. My recommendation personally would be that they need to perhaps do a tour that they offer, or maybe just even a book in the hotel rooms when you check in, something with the onboarding. I've also got a background in marketing. Are you communicating that information effectively to people so that they can be respectful of the surroundings they're staying in?
Yeah.
Do people even know about this? I think a lot of people don't.
I don't think they do.
And I'm really blind, so I'm never going to read a tiny plaque on the wall for information. I'm going to ignore that entirely.
I have never seen anybody read a tiny plaque on any of those walls.
No.
Both times we've stayed there.
Yeah, so those would be, I think, our recommendations for how to make the situation better for the hotel and even the surrounding businesses and whatnot, from both a human and spiritual standpoint.
Yeah. There's no doubt it was the first cemetery for the penal colony of Van Diemen's Land. They have done a lot of remediation though, and exhumed bodies, reburied them with their gravestones. And it was really only a couple of years ago that they realised that there were still bodies here.
Ooh, what's that? That's the same one. Is that the same one as when we were up there?